Hey everybody, what's going on? I think I'm online here. Um, can't be too sure. All right, guys, what's happening? Talk to me. Somebody tell me if you can see my face on here. Has Tim started? I think Tim has started. Sorry, I was a minute late. I was logged in to YouTube under my other account. I had to switch over. So, all right, somebody get in here. Tell me how y'all doing tonight. I want to hear from you. I'll turn my phone off. Does anyone see me? Because no one has acknowledged my presence yet. I want to make sure y'all can see me. Yes, thank you, Dave and Amy Jessen. See my face and hear me. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So, hi, Brenda. Brenda, I'm glad you're on tonight. Good to see you. And everybody, look what's here on my desk. Yes, look at this basket of awesome glory. I have no idea why that's on my desk, but that's what's here. I come in here all the time and find weird stuff on my desk, and that was what was here when I came in from youth group was a giant water gun. I don't ask questions; it doesn't do any good. So, all right, well, let's get some shout outs tonight, and we're going to start covering some chapters. Let's see here, Dave and Amy Jessen. Good to see you guys tonight, and appreciate you guys coming out. Hi, Teresa. Hope your knee's doing good. Wow, Amy. Chicken noodle soup, sweet potato, chicken noodle, sweet potato, kale soup for dinner. It was delicious. Amy, that is quite a combination of things to go in soup. That's pretty good. Hi, Daryl Louth. Good to see you, buddy. Hi, Marcia and Joe. Hope you guys are living it up in Florida because it is just ridiculous cold here. So, all right, Tina and Mike Bird, how you guys doing? Good to see you. Hey, Brenda. And Brenda, you are always welcome on these live streams, and also welcome to our Sunday services online or whatever. We're always glad to have you. So hope you're doing well. And hi, Teresa. Skylar, thanks for logging in tonight. Val McAllister, good to see you. Thanks for sharing Sean with us a little bit tonight. Let's see here. All right, here's a couple people can see me. That's good. Hi, Skylar. Good to have you out tonight. Hey, Beth Reedy. Whoa, what happened there? Beth Reedy and Tim and Candy Dickey are in the house. Awesome, Tim. Tim Dickey. Yeah, Tim Dickey is pretty awesome. That's true. Cody would love to share that with you. Oh, yeah, this does look like something that would be up Cody's alley. There's no doubt about that. And, this is just one of the amazing parts of my life is I come in and it's sitting right here on my desk. And awesome. So, Cody and I had a pretty good time with that because I seem to remember a Nerf gun incident at a youth group, well, maybe prior to me being here, where Cody and I ambushed the entire youth group with Nerf guns, and that was totally fun. So, all right, good. Hi, all from St. Reed. Scott, buddy, I hope you're feeling better. I was up to see Scott yesterday, and he was having a rough time of it. So everybody keep Scott in your prayers, and glad you're logged on here tonight. Glad the internet's working a little better. He and I were having some problems with the internet when I was up there yesterday. So, and hey, Val, yep, keep praying for Scott. So, all right, well, we're up at youth group tonight, and we had 21 kids up there, and had a really good discussion tonight on the attributes of God. And that's a pretty big topic. And I had a whole room full of middle schoolers, and we were talking about different attributes of God and what that means and how we relate to God and all this stuff. And really had a wonderful discussion with those kids. For about a half an hour, we talked through a lot of things, and they were sharing some stuff about things going on in school. And then, as seems to inevitably happen in there, they were talking about teachers they wanted to beat up, but that's par for the course. But yeah, we had a good discussion in there, and it was good to have some time to bond with those kids. For those of you, a number of you who are here tonight, I have heard from, but I've got a new new text ring going around for the youth group. So if you have kids in youth group, or kids who are in youth group, or if you would like to know what's going on with youth group, text me and tell me that. I'll be happy to add you to the ring. and so that you'll be kept up to date on what's going on with youth group. Any of you who are interested in that, just drop me a text right now, and as soon as I get off of live stream tonight, I'll add you to the group and get everything all ready to go. So just know that's an opportunity. If you're just curious, want to know what youth group's doing, you'll have a chance to do that. So yeah, Val, we missed Lorelei tonight. One of the games involved wrapping kids in toilet paper and them shooting me with Nerf guns. So again, par for the course. It's just how things go. So all right, cool. Scott, you still having trouble? I know we were having trouble yesterday when I was up there about keeping things going. All right, here. All right, well, I got on and did some reading today. And what is going on here? Okay, hang on. I got to get back on the right page here. So tonight we're going to do all of part 5. So we're doing chapters 16 and 17. And yeah, Brenda, I'll be happy to add you to my youth group text. Just drop me a text and remind me to do that, and I'll put you in there. We've got a lot going on, and looking forward to good things. As good Lord willing, we'll be able to get back to normal here soon. By the way, as far as prayer requests, I'm very thankful for one thing tonight. I know we're not to this yet, but on Monday, thanks to Otterbein, I got offered the chance to get the first round of the vaccine. So I've had the first round of shots. I'm due to have the second one on February 22nd. So then I'll be fully vaccinated and planning to get back to doing some visiting and doing some things, stuff we used to do all the time. So I'm thankful for that. And so, all right. So tonight we're talking about the part 5, Lamb of God. If you don't have the book, don't worry about it. But Max made some pretty decent points in here that I want to go over here with you tonight and talk about a little bit. I don't know, nothing really earth-shattering, but hopefully I can spur a little discussion here tonight. You guys can jump on and talk with me a little bit. So, and we're going to close up tonight. Sorry, I'm all over the place here. We're going to close up tonight with talking about the study on the Apostle Peter, which we're going to be starting in 2 weeks. Actually, 2 weeks from tonight. So we'll all be thinking about that and praying about that because we'll be done with this book and going on to the devotional that I started working on today, and I'm hoping to be able to finish by the end of the week. I'm hoping. So, okay. All right. Well, how do I want to approach this? Talking about the Lamb of God, I guess that's where we can start. That's the title of this section. And talking about how Jesus brought us back together with God, which is something that I feel like we talk about that a lot, but we don't. I don't know that we actually wrestle with exactly what that means. It's like, here I use my mouse as an example all the time. So here's the mouse to my computer. If I were to go up to the cash register and I say at a store and say, "Hey, look at this great mouse. I really like to buy this mouse," and they say, "Well, this mouse is $49.95," and I'd be like, "Oh, I don't have that much." It would be like the manager of the store coming down and saying, "Yes, the mouse is $49.95," and then reaching into his pocket and paying for it for me and let me take it home. That's the atonement theory. That's what Christ did for us. We wanted to be reunited. We wanted to be connected with God. The price was more than we could afford, obviously, because you read the Old Testament, we tried a lot of ways to get that gap bridged and just never quite were able to make it. So God came down and said, "Yep, the price is still death, and I'll go ahead and sign that check." And that's the atonement theory in a nutshell. So we were able to be made right with God. God, he he was able to maintain his holiness and able to maintain his justice and maintain, all those important attributes of God. All that remained intact, but also saved us and didn't allow us to get whisked away because of our sin. That's the atonement theory. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, because that's what Max talks about for tonight. So that's what the Lamb of God did. Came to pay a debt that to say we had no hope of ever paying on our own would be a radical understatement. So, so that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Hi, Bill and Crystal. Glad you guys are out tonight. That's where we are. So one of the things he was talking about was, and I didn't know this until I read this chapter, that Max Lucado has had some problems with like little skin cancers on his face, and something that certain people have dealt with. And he says whenever he goes in, the doctor finds one that they need to deal with. So he goes in and has surgery. He says, the doctor always tells me it's the best kind of cancer to have. It's completely treatable. It's not really dangerous, little surgery and taking these things off. And it's not any really big thing. And Max says, yeah, kind of easy for you to say, because they aren't growing on your skin, right? They aren't growing on your face. And that's a good point, where the doctor may say, based on some of the stuff I see, this is like little time, but this is not how it works. I think I probably made this joke in here before, but do you all know the definition of minor surgery? Anybody here know the definition of minor surgery? Definition is minor surgery is surgery they do to somebody else, because when it's you, it's always major surgery. So that's what Max is saying. I gladly trade places with you. You hand me the knife and you lay down there. I'll cut on your face a little bit, and I take these great skin cancer things off. And sometimes I feel like that's kind of the way we feel, is that this great gift has been given to us, this great grace, this wonderful opportunity to be healed and be whole and be back together. And it's awesome and fantastic. But we, at the same time, I don't know, have a complete appreciation for just how much that cost, and just what a great gift that is, because it wasn't something we were ever going to get on our own. Again, read the entire Old Testament. I mean, God tried the Garden of Eden. He tried a flood. He tried a covenant. He tried kings. He tried prophets. He tried kingdoms. He tried having no land. He tried having land. He tried having a tabernacle, then a temple, and we just could not get it right. And God finally realized that the old saying is true: if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And that's what the whole Jesus event was. And especially, we're just about a couple weeks here from moving into Lent, and we're going to start talking about some Easter themes. Don't let that get swept under the rug about what a great big gift. I think I keep saying that, but that's what it was. What a great gift that was for us to be able to have such a wonderful thing. So all right, let me flip a few pages here. Okay, one of the stories he tells in here, and a couple of you folks who were affiliated with Forest Park for a while may know this. He talks about a church that he served that was vandalized, and some thugs broke in and wrote obscenities on the baptistry and peed on some of the sacred parts of the church. Just awful stuff. And I can remember when I was at Forest Park, the church I was at prior to coming to Wayne Street. That church was actually vandalized a number of years ago. That was long before I was ever the pastor there. But some people broke in, and there was a lot of strange stuff. They actually found a woman that was in there when they got there, and as I heard it, she was going to be sacrificed or something. It was kind of a weird thing. There was beautiful stained glass in the sanctuary that told the life of Jesus. All the major events of Jesus' life told in stained glass. It was just beautiful. And they went through and took some kind of blunt object and busted out all the faces of all the stained glass and just tore up the place. It was just awful. And now, again, this had been years and years prior to my arrival. This was a long time ago. And I can remember we were cleaning out a closet, and we found an old videotape of a news story that they did on this vandalism at Forest Park. And again, I found the tape. I didn't know what was on it when I found it, and I put it in, and I quickly realized, oh, this was the story of the vandalism. And I can remember the secretary who was there at that time, and our custodian, who was a long time member, just happened to be there when I put it in. So we all started kind of watching it because, it's interesting, a piece of history of the church. And we were watching the story of the vandalism, and they had some pictures, and there was some talk about it. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. What a big moment of history in the church, which it was. And so we're watching it, and then when it's over, I was going to turn around and say, wow, that was kind of something. And both of them were crying. Now, I wasn't affected that way, just because I wasn't there. But that brought back such a powerful memory for them that they remembered that so vividly. And for their sacred sanctuary to be violated, to me, here I am like, oh, that's interesting. I wasn't even I'm stupid. I wasn't even thinking. And I turned around, and both of them had tears in their eyes. And obviously my demeanor about that changed. But it was such a powerful thing to him. And I'm thinking about my home church in Alger. If I ever found out that place was vandalized, I haven't been to a church service there in 25, probably longer than 25 years. But if I ever found out and they had a bunch of people together with ball bats and going to go deal with something, I'd go jump in, because that sanctuary back in Alger has a lot of meaning to me. And if somebody don't treat that the way it's supposed to be treated, it's going to be a problem. I'm going to have a problem with that. And so those places have great meaning. So Max was talking about, and I'm sharing that story because I could imagine if any of us came in Sunday morning and our beautiful new sanctuary down here at Wayne Street was, I don't mean, the band left a water bottle on the stage or something. I mean, really vandalized, something really messed up. We're not going to be real happy about that, because that place, not only is it, physically our property, but that's a sacred space, and if somebody's not treating the space like we feel it ought to be treated, we're not going to respond too positively to that. We're going to be angry, and we're going to, want people to get blamed. Now, I've gone through all that to tell you, to make this point, because I think Max made a point at this point in a way that I had never thought about it before. He says, because he had an incident where his church was vandalized just horribly. And he said, when that happened, I had the normal human reaction. Find them, punish them, lock them in a cell, and throw away the key. I mean, that's the way he felt, which, again, would be a very normal way I think a lot of people would feel. But what he said was, it never once dawned on me throughout that whole experience, when I stood before the congregation to explain to them what happened and all that stuff, I never, ever once thought to say to them, I did it. Blame me. I wrote those bad words in the baptistry, and I urinated on those sacred things and all this. That was me. I did it. I was at Forest Park. I would never have even dreamed to say, I'm the one that busted out the faces, and I'm the one that got this, this woman in here and all the straight stuff. That would never have even crossed my mind to say. Yet, that is exactly what God did. And I had never thought of it that way before. I mean, that's what Jesus was talking. I mean, that's what Jesus was talking about in the Garden of Eden. He said, let the blame that falls on this guy and falls on you, let that fall on me. I did it. Those bad thoughts, bad actions, the lies, the whatever it was, I did it. And that really, and again, I work in a church. Obviously, I have a great affection for sanctuaries. Believe me, you won't meet anybody who has more so than me. But that is what Jesus did. The one who knew no sin bore all our sin. I mean, we all know that, but at least I never had really thought about it in those terms before. And I'm curious if any of you would like to jump in the comments and tell me, had you ever thought of it that way before? That is exactly what happened. It would be like, me standing up and saying something crazy like, something happened here in town, and I stood up in front of the church and said, I did it. Even though you're all like, we saw you. We know you weren't even there. And that doesn't sound anything like you. And to stand up and take the blame, I mean, just flat out, full on take the blame for something that nobody in their right mind would think that you did. But that's what Jesus did. That's what the cross was about. The cross was about us, about you and me. And Jesus willingly stood up and said, that was me. I did it. You ever thought of it that way before? Somebody jump in the comments and tell me, have you ever thought of it that way before? Because you can imagine his congregation was just as angry as you would be if something happened to our sanctuary down here. And, I can imagine if something like that happened, I wouldn't even joke around and say it was me. I wouldn't even make a joke like that. Yet Jesus willingly stood up and said, yeah, it was me. I did it. Yeah. Nobody wants to jump in. I hope I'm still online. The chat went quiet. So I hope I'm not talking to myself. But anyways, I found that to be pretty interesting, a pretty interesting way to look at it. And here we go. Hi, Brenda. No, I haven't. But what a perspective to think about what Jesus did. Yes, I mean that. Yeah. I think that is quite a perspective because that is what happened. Valerie McAllister. No, the line that says, "When I use this tongue to hurt, those hands to injure, this brain for my glory and not God's. Am I not vandalizing God's temple?" That one got me. Yes. Yeah. And Max has a way of turning the phrase. I mean, nobody in the game does it better than he does. But you're right, that phrase really does, because that again, that's exactly what happened. Tim says, I would do it in a heartbeat for one of my kids. Maybe for your kids, but I don't know that you do that for a stranger. I mean, nobody's going to do that. I mean, we would never think of doing that for Charles Manson. I agree with you, Tim. But you would never think about doing that for somebody that you really thought was a scoundrel. I mean, really. I don't mean somebody who made an error in judgment. I mean a truly evil person. Like what it would take to vandalize a sanctuary. I'm not talking about some kids who threw toilet paper at somebody's trees or something stupid like that. I mean somebody with real evil intent. Martian never thought of it that way. Yep. Val hadn't. Yep. Dave and Amy. Matt Dyer, how you doing, buddy? I'm always glad to see you show up in here, man. And Teresa, yes. We were his to begin with, but sin separated us. Yeah, and that's what he did. He basically, because God had to maintain his sovereignty. He had to maintain his holiness. He had to be the great maintainer of. Hope I didn't just unplug my machine here. The great maintainer of justice. And that's what he did. So, all right, that's the introduction. Let's jump into chapter 16 here. And let me see here. All right, so let's take the conversation we just had about Christ taking the blame for us, and let's take that the next logical step then. Okay, so there's really two ways, and Max kind of lays this out. And again, I mean, nobody does it like Max Lucado. That's why he's a famous author, and I'm a pastor at St. Mary's. But he turns a phrase like nobody else. The next thing we was talking about, what choices did God have? Okay, so there's only he lays it out two ways. I mean, we probably could argue a third way, but he says there's really only two ways we could get through the threshold of heaven. The first way is the way we've already talked about. Something was going to have to happen to make this be just. But the other possibility is God just turns a blind eye. All right, you got caught with your hand in the cookie jar, and we all go, gosh, you really shouldn't have done that. And, whatever, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see it. You just slide on in. And one of the things that he makes here is that if God took that second way and just said, shucks, you shouldn't have done that, but here we are. If God would have taken that way, think about who we would have populated heaven with. That perfect place, that wonderful, wonderful opportunity with no, again, my favorite passage of the Bible from Revelation 21, where he says, John looks at the holy city, the New Jerusalem, and he says, wow, the biggest thing I could see about that place was there was no death, no sorrow, no crying, and no pain. Now, you think about the result of sin, death, sorrow, crying, and pain. I think that pretty well sums it up. Bad behavior results in those bad things. So if God is just like going, all right, sweep that under the rug and go on in, he's going to populate heaven with a bunch of people participating in activities that's going to lead to death, sorrow, crying, and pain. Now, I don't know about you all, but that doesn't sound like heaven for me. That doesn't sound like heaven to be in a place where these bad things can happen, or I have to be suspicious of my neighbor. That doesn't sound like heaven. So what God did is he said, yes, justice must be served. I can't let that go, because then I would be populating heaven with something that, let me rephrase that statement. I'd be populating heaven with people who were not going to be able to maintain the kind of heaven that I want to give to people. Perfect example, the first couple of chapters of Genesis. I tried that once and it lasted like a day. It didn't get very far. So justice has to be served, but once justice is served, then we're able to go and live in this place with no death, sorrow, crying, pain. And so I think the thing that makes heaven what it is, again, a lot of great things about heaven, not arguing any of that, but the thing that makes heaven what it is the fact that it's ruled by God, a holy, just, sovereign, powerful God. And if God has blind spots, and if God just turns a blind eye to things, that ain't God being God. That's not that. Now heaven is not ruled by this benevolent, omnipotent presence anymore, and therefore not heaven. Because if God's going to turn a blind eye to things that are going on in this world, then necessarily he's going to turn a blind eye to things going on in the next world. So what happens when your neighbor decides to come over and steal your stuff or whatever? That's not heaven. That's just here, where we don't have that. And so in order for heaven to maintain its wondrous status, justice had to be served. At the same time, if God went all justice and no grace, heaven is going to be population one, and that's Jesus. So he gave up the population of one so that he could have the population of all of us. And that's wonderful. And Jesus didn't do it for strangers. That's true, Tim. He did it for us. And I understand what you're saying, but again, I don't think your children, in fact, I know for a fact that your children, may have made mistakes along the way, as all children do, but they're not, the worst of the worst. And that's part of what we're talking about tonight, is the fact that God was able to, or God was willing, I should say, to make this concession to trade his only son for all of us and give us all an opportunity to know this life and grace and eternal life. Now, we can choose to live in ignorance of it, ignoring it. If you want to live that kind of unfulfilling and disastrous life, you're certainly welcome to do that. I absolutely would not recommend it, but it's up to you. You can go find out what kind of dead end that results in, if that's what you want to do. Now, one of the examples of how this was all going to work was an example that Jesus gave us. One of the more famous stories of the Bible, told in the Gospel of John, where Jesus was at the Last Supper and he washes the disciples' feet. And again, what just probably the greatest example of servant leadership that has literally ever been given. I don't know that has ever been demonstrated in a more clear or profound way than that. So he's there with his disciples. And again, remember, he knows these disciples. One of them is about to go betray him for 30 pieces of silver, and the rest of them are about to be like, I don't know, Jesus who? I've never heard of the. Those are the feet that he's washing, and he's going around the table. And Max goes on to say, you got to remember when these guys were running away later in the evening, which they all did, they were running unclean feet, and we're not told in the gospel or any of the gospels that any of them realized the great significance of that, but they were feet clean by the very one that they just said, I don't know who that is. The only one who didn't deny who Jesus was Judas, and we all know how that one turned out. So it's very interesting that these guys were running away on feet that Jesus washed for them just a few hours prior to his arrest. And Max even says, even if it took, just a couple of minutes with each disciple, given that there were 12 of them, he says this foot washing thing, it wasn't like real quick. It probably went on for the better part of an hour. So this wasn't something that was over, quickly. It was an example of grace to a bunch of guys who absolutely did not deserve it. I mean, think about what's going to happen just over the next couple of hours. One of them is going to go to the leading priest and say, sure, I'll show you which one he is. A couple of other ones are going to be out there. Jesus is going to say, will you guys sit with me? They're going to fall asleep. And then the soldiers are going to show up, and they're going to try to fight the soldiers. These bumpkin fishermen who Jesus has been teaching about peace for the last couple of years, suddenly are going to become like super ninjas or whatever, and they're going to take out this Roman battalion. That ain't going to go well. So and when they find out they can't fight their way out, they run their way out, and they leave Jesus behind. And those are the guys. Those are the guys that Jesus is about to do this just unthinkable act of grace and mercy. And he's counting on these guys with the clean feet, but none of the rest of them clean, to take this message to the ends of the earth. What an amazing... To me, that's evidence that the gospel has to be true. Because if you were going to make up a story, my word, you've got to do better than this. You got to do better than this. How can you make up a story with this much, what's the word I'm looking for? This much people being unqualified. I can't think what the word is. But, this many unqualified people. Why would you make up a story that paints the main characters in such a horrible light as this? How just completely inept these guys were. And if they're the ones that are making up the story, they would have made themselves look better. I just believe that. And why they would have made themselves come off the way that they did, it's I don't know why they would have made it up. I honestly don't get it. So Candy says foot washing is one of the most powerful things I've ever been a part of. Yeah, I've done foot washing on both, been the person got their foot washed and done foot washing myself a couple of times. And it's a very interesting, almost, man, my words are all escaping me tonight. It's a very close connection between the two people, and it's a very powerful experience. And it really is something to behold. Have any of the rest of you ever been a part of? I'm just curious for the other 21 of you who are here. Have any of the rest of you ever been a part of a foot washing service? Like I said, I've done it a couple of times, going both ways. Just curious. Candy has. I'm just curious if any of the rest of them had. Any of the rest of you here had. Okay, Brenda hasn't. Teresa did want some of the rest of you have it. It's not something to practice so much anymore. And now with COVID, who knows what you're even allowed to do now? But um, yeah, it's a very powerful experience. It's kind of it's one of those kind of things that doesn't do much for you if you just witness other people doing it. You know, you're kind of there watching it happen. But it's really something to be a part of doing it yourself. And okay, so Joe and Marcia have okay. All right, so now we're getting down to the crucifixion here. So this is kind of the moment when the check gets written, so to speak, and how he talks and does all this stuff. And then when he passes away, most of you here, I'm sure, remember the story when he passes away. Jesus, the sky goes dark for a little while, and and on page 139, he drops this nugget here about Dionysius, who was in Egypt at the time, also claims to have witnessed this darkness clear over in Egypt, which would have been a significant distance away. I had never heard that before, and so I went back and did just some very brief research on this. And Dionysius is actually mentioned in the Bible. He's mentioned his name is mentioned in Acts 17:34, and he was just kind of in a list of names that Luke was writing about in the book of Acts. And so I went ahead and did just a quick Google search. And yes, there is a tradition that Dionysius, who again, whoever he was in Egypt at the time and noted the date that this darkness happened. Again, would have been many years before his conversion. So later, when he was converted, he put together that the day that he witnessed this darkness clear over in Egypt was Good Friday. And again, it's an apocryphal story. There's no way to know if this is true, but that's one of the traditions that he was there that he remembered the darkness happening clear in Egypt at the moment that Christ died. So he kind of dropped that in passing, and I'm like, well, the seminary student in me can't let that sit. So I had to go and do some checking. I didn't find much on it, but I did find a couple of articles written that say that there's an apocryphal story that he did claim to have witnessed the darkness all the way in Egypt. So, you know, for what it's worth, that's what he was mentioning. I just found it to be very interesting. So, all right. So that was one thing he talked about, and he says Max makes the point of of course darkness is going out when you kill the giver of light. That is going to make darkness happen. So it was an interesting discussion. So, all right, that's the end of chapter 16. Let's jump on here to number 17 for a few minutes, and I want to spend our last couple minutes talking about the Peter devotional. So it is finished. Jesus's I would call it famous last words, even though that's not really what they're certainly not his last words, but they are famous. Where he's on the cross, he says, "It is finished." And there's a lot of debate. I've been a part of a lot of, we'll call them friendly arguments about what exactly was he talking about. What is it? You know, he's playing the pronoun game, which sometimes the pronoun game can get to be frustrating when you don't know what the pronoun is. What is it that is finished? You know, is it his life? Well, I have some problems with that because his life wasn't over. But I think the argument that I've heard that makes the most sense is it that was over was the reign of sin, the risk of the great penalty or the great payment of the penalty for all the sin of the world. That's what was over. So when his head went down and he died, his life was given. Therefore, the penalty is paid. God's sovereignty and justice is satisfied. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's all taken care of. It's all done. And so that's what he meant when he said it is finished, and he dropped down. One of the things that Max points out is that he cried out in a loud voice. The gospel writers all make it very clear that when Jesus said this, he was speaking up to be heard. And it says a loud voice. The word literally translate. He roared it. It was roared, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex or something really loud. So it was something that Jesus said really loud from the cross. And for somebody who he didn't speak much to Pilate and didn't speak much to Herod and all the rest of them who were there, or not Herod, Pilate and was it Herod? Oh, geez, I'm getting all my guys mixed up. But all the guys he stood trial in front of, he didn't speak much to them. He didn't speak much to the soldiers. He doesn't, according to the Gospel of Luke, he does speak to the thieves on the cross, which he does not do that in the other three accounts. But for him to suddenly yell something that could be described as a roar, that's a little different. And it's something that he clearly wanted them to hear. So it is finished. Again, kind of an ambiguous statement, but it does allow for some interpretation that is very hopeful. And some of the other things that he said from the cross, he talks about being abandoned. Well, I'm telling you, there are a few things in life worse than feeling abandoned. To be, even if it's something simple, to feel left out, man, that is a lonely, lonely, terrible feeling. And that's why a lot of teenagers struggle with that a lot. If there's something going on or they're not feeling included in what's going on, it's very, very hard. I mean, it's even hard for old people, but especially teenagers struggle with that. And we've just been through this last year of all this, stupid virus stuff. That's a lot of people feeling left out, and that's a difficult emotion to overcome. And that's why I'm hoping some of these restrictions are going to get lifted sometime soon. Because if we keep being forced to be left out, well, I don't know how much longer as a society we can do this, because it's been so hard on so many people, and it really hurts. But I mean, that's what Jesus says from the cross. Why have you forsaken me, or why have you abandoned me? That is just a horrible feeling. And at one time or another, the various degrees, we all have felt that abandonment from someone or something. And it's not a way anybody likes to feel. And there's no doubt why Jesus would have felt that way, because he was, again, the very thing that God could not tolerate. He became sin. All the blame, we were just talking about that. All of the blame and the penalty and all that stuff that came from all the sin of the world was now upon Christ, and God's holiness could not abide that. And so that's why Jesus was feeling very abandoned, is because God was so separate from him, because of how terrible, terrible, terrible this must have been. So, yeah. And again, when we're talking about, and I think Tim Dickey was making this point a few minutes ago about how, sorry, I'm scratching up here. He was talking about how, for our kids, I would take the blame to protect my kids. And of course, anybody would do that. Well, I shouldn't say anybody. Many people would do that. But that's, again, not what we're talking about. Max makes a little bit of a distinction there. Yeah, sure. For people we love, we might be willing to do that, or people that we see as worthy or of deserving of a second chance. Again, most of us will extend that much grace. But Max goes on to make the claim that Jesus is Adolf Hitler, Jesus is Osama bin Laden, Jesus is Jeffrey Dahmer, and all these just downright evil people. That's a little more uncomfortable. For Jesus to take on my sin, that's okay, because I really hurt that many people. I mean, some people, but I haven't done anything that terrible. But when you start thinking about people who have done something terrible, and Jesus stood in their place as much as he stood in my place, that's a little harder to accept, because when somebody has done something, kind of bad, we're all like, all right, shouldn't have done it, but whatever. But when you're talking about true evil and true terrible, people who men who hit women and people who have addictions that cause them to do things they never should have ever even considered doing and all that kind of stuff. We look at that and we're like, "Oh, I don't know if I want that person forgiven. I don't know if I want that person to be extended grace. Can we make exceptions? God doesn't, and that's hard. That's hard for me to say, and I'm sure that you aren't really thrilled to hear me say that because we all know of people. Again, maybe not, hopefully not in our personal life, but we know people, in history and all this stuff. That if God said, would y'all be okay if I didn't give grace to that person? We'd all be like, yep, right here. In fact, here's 2 votes, both of them, count them both. And that's not how this works. And so we're okay with giving a pass to somebody who may have had a small infraction, but that's not what that's not how it works. And oh, Marcia, I think I missed your comment. That would signify us coming from darkness to light, and that's from Joe. Yep, and that's exactly what Jesus drugged the darkness into himself so that we could be offered the light, and thanks be to God for that. And Teresa, Jonah is a fascinating character. If his book was longer, we'd do a study on him because I know we've talked a little bit about him because his story is so good. All those Old Testament stories are great. But Jonah was like, Nineveh. You want me to go say Nineveh? Those guys, come on. You can't be serious about that. That's exactly how Jonah felt. That's why when God said, go to Nineveh, Jonah said, see you later. And that's exactly how he did that because he's like, I don't want to say those people. I don't even like them all that much. And God was like, that's not really what I asked you to do, pal. And so, yes, that's exactly the feeling. So, and again, if we're going to use Jonah as an example here, God made some pretty extreme things happen in order to help we, the readers of the book of Jonah, and Jonah himself to understand that what you did there, that wasn't right. That was not right what you did. And I mean, I would say 3 days in the belly of a fish. I'd say that sounds pretty terrible. I don't know that I'd want to try 3 seconds in the belly of a fish. I don't know that I want to be in the water with a fish big enough to swallow me. Okay. So I'm like, pass on all that. And if that's what happened when you decide I don't want to help people that God decided to help, I'm not feeling that. So that's kind of interesting to me. So. All right, he comes back to I think I got a little ahead of myself on the last chapter, but he comes back to revisit a topic that I think sums up well the problem many of us, and I don't mean you, I mean us, because I sometimes struggle with this too. Was, if this was so bad, if this sin was so bad, which again, nobody's disputing it that it's good. I mean, obviously nobody's making that claim or making that argument. So if that was the problem, why didn't God just turn the blind eye? Why didn't God just ignore what was going on? Why didn't God just, kind of let it fly or let it slide or whatever? Why couldn't he just extend grace? Why did the Jesus thing have to happen? If this was such a problem, God wanted us to be able to celebrate eternity so that he would not have to be separated from us. If that's what God was looking for, then why not just do that? Why did the gospel have to be necessary? And Max makes the point here, and again, very eloquently, as we would expect, to say that God is holy. That's why. Because of God's great holiness, and thanks be to God for his holiness, but because of that great holiness, God couldn't just let it go, because letting things go is not holy. As a society, somebody hurts somebody, we have an obligation to make that right as best we can. And obviously, if somebody has taken something that can't be replaced, or somebody has done something that can't be replaced, we as a society have to do the best we can and try to make it right, or make the person pay for what they did. And that's what and again, we can argue this, but that's the purpose of prisons and other forms of punishment. So that's why he did this. So as much as I occasionally wish, let me think about how I want to say this. As much as I occasionally wish that God didn't have to maintain his holiness, because look, I love Jesus. Y'all know I'm a huge Jesus fan. I hope I've made that abundantly clear during my time here. Huge. I mean, give me the big foam finger. Jesus is number one. I'm good. I'm ready for all that. I wish he wasn't necessary, though. I wish it didn't have to happen. It did have to happen, but I wish it didn't. I wish God could have just said, all right, look, y'all screwed it up, but all right. But if you do that, you're not holy. And as much as I wish that didn't have to happen, I do have life because I serve a holy God. And something that I could never be without his help. And by his help, I mean him doing it for me, which is exactly what happened. And I live my life in gratitude for what he has given to me. That's why I get up in the morning and do what I do and try to, as best as this poor old man can, try to affect people and affect situations to make the outcome be more like what I believe God wants. I don't save everybody and I don't help every situation, but I do what I can in order to try to bend things toward grace. And I feel like it's the very least I could do for what's been given for me. So, that's what I'm looking at. I wish Jesus wasn't necessary. I know that he was, but I wish that he wasn't. But at the same time, I want God to be holy, because that holy God is the same one who's going to embrace me as I am. Thanks be to God for that, and give me things that I would not get on my own. And what a blessing! What a blessing that is. So he uses the example here of a time that he went to a restaurant, really fancy restaurant that I have not and will never eat at. But it was one of those things that was a jacket required. And, hey, y'all know I like to dress up and dress nice. And no, that's crap. I don't do that. I don't dress to impress. But a lot of people will go out and go to these places, and you can't get in without a jacket. If a guy don't have a jacket on, he don't get in. So apparently Max didn't know that. And they showed up, and the maitre d' wouldn't let him in because Max didn't have a jacket. So Max was like, dude, please. I mean, what can we do here? So the maitre d' actually went to the back room, pulled out an ugly lime green jacket, he said, and gave it to him so that he and his wife could get in to eat at this place. And so he said the maitre d' set the standard, but then gave Max what he needed to reach it. That's grace. God, the holy God of the universe, set the standard, but he gave us what we needed in order to meet the standard, because we were unable to meet it on our own. Max didn't have time to go home and get a jacket so that he could get into this restaurant. So one was provided for him. So whatever it was we needed to get into heaven, it wasn't something we had back home and then something run home and get it. We didn't have it. But God gave it to us on the cross, and he guaranteed it to us through the empty tomb. And what a blessing that is, friends. I hope every day you take at least a moment to reflect on that, because we would have nothing without it. So, all right. We only got a few minutes left. I think I have run this in the ground. Anyway, I got 2 comments here I'm going to comment on while I'm doing that. If you got any final comments or anything you want to say about this discussion tonight, please get in the chat and tell me, and I'll reflect on that for a few minutes with you. And I want to talk a little bit about the Peter devotional as well. So Teresa says, I think he wanted us to see what our redemption cost because we could never pay it. I think the gospel is a very, very, very clear example of that. And that's what, you know, yeah, we would not have a comprehension of what that was without the gospel. So I think you're absolutely right. In the book of Revelation, it sounds like not everyone is going to heaven. So is there a limit on the forgiveness of sin? Where does God draw the line? Okay, two answers to the question. First answer is that is 100% God's problem. God is not going to come and say, "Hey Tim, what do you think I should do about this?" That question is never going to be asked. Thank God it's not. So I'm perfectly happy to let that be God's problem. So the second answer to that is, though, what is the limit to forgiveness? Forgiveness only works. It only has value when it affects the person who receives it. Example: one of you do something that deeply, and I don't mean stupidly, I mean deeply offends me. Says something that I've just like oh my gosh, I can't. I've had, and we've all had that. We've had interactions with people, and I'm not carrying a grudge, and I don't hate you, but woo boy, I not so sure I want to go to dinner with you or anything like that. Okay, we've all got those people, and I got a few of them in my life as well who hurt me so bad. And again, I'm not bitter, I'm not carrying a grudge, but I'm also not like calling them up to see if they are doing something this weekend. Okay, I'm not there. So, and we've all got those people. So if something were to happen and I were to interact with those people again, and God gave me enough grace that I could forgive them for what they did, but they at no point ever made any recognition that there was an injury or there was a wound or there was something there, and it was just about me telling them it's okay all the time and don't worry about it, there's no transformation. That forgiveness is useless, because all I'm doing is saying, hey, here's a knife, will you cut me with it? And hey, here's a chair, will you throw it at me? And hey, here's a club, will you beat me over the head with it? That forgiveness, it does nothing. And I said the same thing with God. We're offered this great grace, we're offered this fantastic forgiveness, which we are, thanks be to God. But if we never have a recognition of what that means, I mean, if I don't have a recognition of what that means, that Tim has been forgiven for all this stuff, and that I have wronged the world and I've wronged God, which I have, but I never make any effort to recognize that happened and try to do better and work on that forgiveness doesn't affect me in any way, then what good is it? That grace is nothing. That grace is simply God telling me that I'm a number one guy. Tim is the best guy around. And because I just think he's awesome. And I don't learn anything. That grace never affects me. It never affects my life. Never changes how I live. And quite frankly, if I don't want to live in response to grace in this life, why would I have any interest in living in response to grace in the next life? Why would I want to? If I'm not going to do it now, why would I be interested in spending eternity doing it then? Then it's meaningless. And so where's the line? I guess if you're looking for a line, there's the line. Does the idea of God being grace-filled toward you, does that affect your life in some way? Are you different because of that? Are you willing to make changes to your life because of what has been done for you? If you're not, then I would say to you, if you're not going to live in any recognition of grace in this life, why would you want to do that for eternity? You're not doing it now. Why would you even want to do it then? Doesn't make any sense to me. I see no reason why, if you don't want to do it now, I don't see any reason why you want to do it then. Val says, I agree with that statement about forgiveness. I keep forgiving getting hurt. Yeah. Again, forgiveness is all about me. It's not about you. Honestly, that's probably been my most, I guess I'll use the word famous sermon I've done here, because I have seen that one quoted more than all the other sermons I've ever done combined. That line has been, in fact, I may have to redo that sermon sometime, because we forget forgiveness isn't saying that's cool. You pulled out a gun and shot me in my eye, but I'm totally cool with that. That is not forgiveness. That's being stupid. Forgiveness is all about you don't have control over me anymore. That's what forgiveness means. And again, that's same from God's perspective. God forgave us because we don't have control over him anymore. He's saying, look, if you want to live outside of my grace and not be a part of what I want to do, you're like, fine. I'm not going to force you to do that. I'm going to forgive you. Go your way. Hope that works out for you. Probably not going to, but yeah, it's cool. I don't want you to do that. I didn't send my son so you would go do that. But look, if that's the way you want to go, I'm not going to stop you. That's forgiveness. Forgiveness takes control out of the hands of the forgiven. So, Teresa says, before we take communion, we're to make things right with our brother or sister. Yeah. Again, there's sins that go beyond that. But one of the parts of the peace of Christ, which, again, during COVID, we can't be doing that. But that's one of the things that we need to do is to live in community. I mean, it ain't communion if there ain't community. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Skylar says, forgive but never forget. It depends on what you mean by forget, Skylar. Forgiving is good, but if it's forgive so that you can turn around and wrong me again, and I live in this constant cycle of getting hurt over and over by you, and I just got to keep saying it's okay, even though now I'm bleeding and wounded, clearly that's not it. However, by never forgetting, if that means that I'm going to live my life without you controlling me and without you having authority because you anger me so much and I hate you so severely, or you're going to continue to enact your evil in my life, if that's what it means to never forget, that I'm going to be smarter going forward, yes, that is what it means. Forgiveness is not about making yourself stupid, okay? Never. That's not forgiveness. And anybody who tries to tell you it is, or that you should just forgive them because they ask, or they should have all the rights and privileges they had before they wronged you, even though they've done nothing to earn them, nope, that ain't what forgiveness is. And anybody says, well, you're not being Christian if you won't, nope. Being Christian doesn't make me stupid. It doesn't do it. I forgive because you don't control me anymore. Doesn't mean you get a free pass to come back and do it again. That is not what it means. So I love it when you guys type things in the comments. I know it's so hard to interact because there's such a long lag and it's hard for you guys to type as fast as my mouth talks. But I love this back and forth when we get this going. So anybody else got anything before I sign off for the night? While you're thinking about any last comment, thank you, Teresa. While you're thinking about any last comments here, the Peter devotional. I wrote the first. I got one down, 41 to go. But I have that going. If you would like a book, if you would like a book, stay tuned here for a second. I'm going to give you a link to click here in just 1 second. Hang on, of course, my computer's going to run slow now. I'd like for you to sign up for a book because I'd like to know how many I'm going to need to have. And I'm going to give you a link here. Just hang tight for a second. I'm going to get it for you. But please sign up for a book. I can email it to you, or you can are you for real right now? I can email it to you, or I'd be happy to print you one. Either way that you would like. And it's going to be a daily devotional. Many of you have done my devotionals before, so that's going to be no big deal for you as far as format, because you've seen it before. Okay, in the chat right now, I am putting a link, right? It's coming. There's the link. If you click on that link that I just dropped in the comments there, that will take you. Now, be careful if you click on it; it might take you away from this window. So you might want to wait till I sign off here. But yeah, go ahead and click on that link and just fill out the little questionnaire. It's pretty self-explanatory. But just know if you click on it now, it's probably going to take you away from this window. So don't click on it yet. But go ahead and sign up there, and I'll be happy to get you a printed and or email book, whatever your preference is. And any prayers that you guys got for me to get my brain clear. This week has been just crazy stupid. I need to get to writing because that book is due in less than 2 weeks, and I need to get those done. So if you can pray for a jump start for my poor brain to get that going. We're going to be looking at the Apostle Peter. We're going to follow his story through the Gospel of Luke. We're only looking at Luke's account of him. And the reason I'm doing that is because, like many of the Gospel stories, we sort of amalgamate them all together. So they come together. And I just wanted to follow one account, and I happen to love Luke. So if you guys would like a copy of this, I have all the – right here it is. Those devotionals, they start out like this. These are my notes. So those are the notes I took to get them all together. I got the book formatted today. Now all I got to do is fill it with content. So, yes, pray for my poor tired brain that I can get that written and get it out there. And you guys are so ridiculously kind to be a part of that. My hope is Wednesday nights will also be the Bible study that goes with the devotional. So we'll be here to study that, and I'm hoping to get a few more people out for Lent. So that's my prayer. And if any of you would like to invite anybody to come and be a part of that, starting 2 weeks from tonight, we'll have Ash Wednesday, and then we'll have this time. Spiritual jumper cables. Yes, Tim. Yes, if I hook them right to my ears and get my brain going, that would be awesome. So let's see here. Let me give a shout out here. Yes, Brenda, when we're done here, click on that link and sign up for a book. Love to have you. Matt wants you to sign up for a book too, buddy. I'd love to have you in the study. And thanks for being a part of the conversation. Cheryl, you too. Click on the link and get one. My deviations. I do deviations as well as anybody. So yes. And I'm glad you've enjoyed it, Brenda. I know you've been a part of a couple of them before, and I'd love to have you in this one. So if you'd like a book, click on that link and it will take you over and sign up for one. And that's good. Yeah, Freudian slip. Yeah. And so, yep, you can get on there. And thank you. Amy, prayers for your teeth. Hopefully that will go well next week. And Joe and Marcia, send us some Florida sunshine, for God's sake, please. Please, this gray, cold stuff. I had it with that. So, yeah, and I'm glad we're able to connect this way. And I know you guys are watching, Joe and Marcia. I know you guys from Florida are watching our church services too. And I love that you're doing that. So, all right, everybody. Gosh, we're 10 minutes over. So I need to sign off. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much for coming out to be a part of this conversation with me here on Wednesday nights. Click on that link that I just put in the description there. Right, I'll put it here again so it's at the bottom. Get on there and get a book. And I would appreciate having all of you to be a part of that. And all right, well, I love you all very much. You guys have a great night's sleep tonight and a great day tomorrow. I hope you found some encouragement. Next week, we're going to finish up Max Lucado in the last 3 chapters. The last section is called Returning King. Sounds like a great triumphal entry triumphal conclusion to our study here. So that's what we'll be doing next week. Hope you all will be here for that. So I love you all very much. And hope you all have a great night. And you all know what you need to go do now. Go wash your hands.